Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Everlasting Veteran Podcast. I am joined in studio with a remarkable individual that has a story to tell, Ashley Howell, Alaskan native that used to drive trucks, now is an Arizona resident for a few years now, a real estate agent and more. Ashley Howell, welcome to Everlasting Veteran. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm stoked to be here with you tonight. This will be good.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot to dive into based on our conversation before, and obviously we'll probably expand on that. So start out like Alaska. I think you're the first person I have ever met in my entire life that is Alaskan native.
No way. Okay.
Born and raised in Alaska, right? So dive into that. What is that like?
Yeah, as kids, you don't know anything different, right? Just where we grew up, and so it was nice. It was before the internet, and so just played outside as kids, snow machine, fishing, camping, hiking, lots to do. So as you get older, the winters get way too long, and so but a great place to raise kids and grow up, and so had a great childhood, and yeah, we loved it.
And what part of Alaska was it? Close to the shore? Deep
Kenai,
in there?
Kenai Peninsula. Yeah, it's about 2.5 hours south of the big city.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah.
Now you did send me some pictures of truck driving, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to dive into that a little bit more down the road. All right.
Sweet.
So as you're growing up and stuff, in Alaska, what is like one of the major things that like Alaskans do for fun?
For fun, everything outside, really, in the summertime and winter, really. But a lot of bonfires, a lot of barbecues outside. In the summer, it's daylight for like 23 hours. And so you can be out doing stuff all hours of the night. And so, yeah, just a lot of outdoor stuff.
Okay. 23 hours, right? We're going to dive into that because I do have a question about that. What is that like mentally, like the sun being up for so long?
Yeah, right? Dude, when you're kids, you're like, we're not going to bed. It's daylight, And so, but people get blackout curtains. You just get used to it. But people visiting struggle with it because it's weird.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the lifestyle, adapts to it, obviously, but you could benefit from it to capitalize on, longer days and stuff like that. Now, are there like longer nights? Like, does it reverse? Or is it
it's kind of similar to the rest of the United States where you go home in the dark, go to work in the dark, that kind of thing, 8 hours of daylight, in the winter. Unless you're way up north and then it stays dark for like 6 weeks, I think. And like the native villages, like way up north.
6 weeks of darkness?
Something like that. Yeah. It's a good chunk of time.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Now
you gotta be pretty far north.
Now, is that like consider I correct me if I'm wrong, and if this is just ignorant, is that like those areas like the dry counties? Is that what like due to the darkness and stuff like that and like everything else? I watched a few episodes of like the Alaskan life and everything. Beautiful area. Absolutely beautiful. And I've seen like Gold Rush, right?
Yeah.
A
lot of reality shows.
Yeah, a lot of reality shows, the one they follow the, Alaskan troopers around and stuff like that. Obviously, those are glimpses into like the day-to-day life, the people that live there in a cinematic type of way, right? So you can't really grasp like the concept. So like when I speak about it, like it really is ignorance because I just don't know. Right?
Yeah, most people don't know. It's all good. Yeah.
Yeah. And but it's great to like be able to talk about it like somebody that experienced it, their entire life. Right.
Yeah.
And because how long ago was it that you moved from Alaska to Arizona?
It was 6 years in November. So
okay.
Just a little over 6 years. I've traveled a lot growing up. And as an adult, I can't talk today. But just this is my first move. So.
Okay. Gotcha. So this first move, like ever.
Yep.
Like, so you lived in the same house up until this move?
No, just the same state. Jumped houses quite a bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But there are people like that or some people never leave, and just stay in the same house.
Okay. So. But first move where it's like outside the state, completely different climate, completely different atmosphere. Like you have, what do you do with more daylight now, or less daylight? Actually, like
Well, it's definitely more daylight for sure because our summers are so short up there, you know.
yeah,
And so I just wanted like a lot of people do winter sports. I don't. And so I wanted to be somewhere where I could be active year round outside.
right,
And even like the summers are hot here, but you can still get out and do stuff in the morning and at night,
right.
you know? And so that was the goal
All right.
mainly.
So give me two best qualities of Alaska compared to two best qualities of Arizona, and then two worst and two worst.
Okay. Alaska, there's just so much to do if you like nature and being outdoors. And it's just gorgeous compared to anywhere else you will visit, really. There's nothing like it. There's a reason why people spend their whole life trying to get there to check it out. Two negatives, the winter's just way too long. And there's not really like, as far as like business side of stuff goes, there's not a whole lot of conferences or speakers that come through or a lot of opportunities for growth, if that makes sense. And so that was one reason I wanted to be down here because in the States you can jump around, you can get on a little plane. It's easy and convenient as far as access goes to other places in the world.
Right.
And so that was a big seller on Arizona and just sunshine all year round. There's a lot of people here. It's getting kind of crazy. Our market's a little wild, and so that's good and bad, I guess. Right? It's definitely growing, and so and summers can be a lot here for another negative side. So I think that the positive outweighs the negative for sure, though.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Every place does, right? You find some good positives, especially if like you consider a place your home,
Yeah.
right? So that there's a weighted balance that like only is true to that person.
Yeah.
Right.
Have you
And
been here? Have you been to Arizona?
I have passed through Arizona.
Okay.
Yeah, I have not had a long stay, and I don't know of any really thing other than going to like a football game or something like that. I know some people that live in Arizona.
Yeah.
I know a guy I grew up with and went to high school with, played for the Arizona Cardinals.
Nice. Okay.
And I think he's actually a firefighter now, if I remember
Is he?
correctly. Yeah, I don't know where though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I know of Arizona, just like I know of Alaska.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I've been, military and stuff like that. Boot camp AIT down in Oklahoma. I've been to Texas, Florida. I've been to a lot of states up and down the East Coast. I haven't been to Alaska. I've always wanted to go to Alaska. I've never been to Canada.
No. Okay.
And I live in New England.
Yeah.
But I've been overseas. That's the weird thing, So, I mean, it is what it is. Life took me on a different journey, and I left Connecticut when I joined the military and said I was never coming back.
Yeah.
Right. And then I came back after the military, and I had an 11.5-year policing career before I took the job that I have now. So
You bounced around.
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things like it's home, right? It's rooted, and I have family here, and then I settled down, started a family here, so, I mean, do I want to stay in Connecticut like when I decide to retire? I don't know. I think I'm at that point in my life where, and I'm glad I'm at this point where whatever ends up being what it is in life, I'm going to continue to have fun with it,
I love that.
and because I mean, at the end of the day, like I can't take anything with me. Right. So I got to make the best of it, and
100%.
doesn't matter how much money you have, doesn't matter how many objects you have, material, objects, they're great and fine and everything. But the stress of, life sometimes just it consumes you.
Yeah.
Right. And doesn't allow you to live life to the fullest in your eyes. Right.
Right.
You can't live it for somebody else. And, one of the big messages I always say is that you have to be 100% for yourself first. And I've said this many times before, and I always say it to new guests I have on the show, because you can't be 100% for somebody else if you're not 100% for yourself,
100%. So important.
And a lot of that a lot of that comes down to happiness, right? You know, how many people, you know, have we seen in this world where they're having a great life, you know, they're millionaires, they have all this money, and like they're really not that happy,
Yeah.
right?
It's an inside job for sure.
It's an inside job. It's self-care, you know?
Yeah.
And so I do want to talk about truck driving. That is, when you told me that, like, I tell you this, that wouldn't have been my first thought. Real estate agent, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Right? Teacher, got it. Okay. You know, like some type of I was kind of piecing together, you live in Alaska, maybe like you had a farm, maybe you had, you know, I could go that route. I would have never like guessed truck driver in a million years. Like that threw me through a loop. Like
there was a lot of people. Yeah, they're like, what?
yeah, and it's not about how you look or anything like that. It's just that's not my first thought to be like ask somebody or assume that they're a truck driver.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
I mean it's definitely a good job, you know, and I know a lot of people that are truck drivers, and you know, we have a couple that used to drive trucks, you know, in our family.
Awesome. Okay.
But you know, I mean, it wouldn't have been my first thought. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what was that like? Well, I mean, what was that like? Was it a daunting task when you first were like, okay, I'm going to drive a truck, like, or was it like, I want to go do this?
It was scary. I've done a few different things, you know, after high school or whatever. I did cosmetology school and then dental assisting, but just couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do really that I enjoyed doing. And so I was with a really amazing man for 13 years that owned a semi-trucking company with his family. And he's like, you could do this, get ahead and figure out like what your next steps are. I was like, yeah, no, there's no way I can drive an 18-wheeler. You're out of your mind. He's like, no, dude, I'll teach you. And so he taught me how to drive them. And I got my CDL and just kind of went for it. And yeah, it was very, very scary in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I've driven some big vehicles in the military, and
yeah,
you know, towed, you know, we had funds and, you know, towed artillery, you know, so you got this big gun hanging off the back similar to, you know, a trailer and stuff. And you know, your first thought is, you know, whatever vehicle you drive, like that's how you drive it at first. You know, you don't realize you have about, you know, 30, 40 feet behind you that's trailing, right?
Yep.
And you know, so my first thought was like, what was the first time you drove a truck, right? An 18-wheeler.
Yeah.
Did you drive it like you're I'm just guessing. I'm not saying you drove a Honda Civic, but just for the purposes, did you drive it like a Honda Civic or did you drive it like an 18-wheeler?
I've driven stick shifts with cars, thankfully, and so I kind of had an idea. But this is a whole new ball game, dude. Like, way different. Yeah.
Well, there's multiple. Like, how many gears in the rigs that you ran? How many gears were there shift through?
13 to 18, just depending on the truck.
13 to 18. Some people nowadays can't get it into first gear. Right?
Yeah.
They don't even know how to drive stick, and you're driving 13 to 18 gears.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot. That's a lot. Now, like, when you started driving, I mean, did it become like a passion? Did you like truck driving?
We had a lot of fun because it was a family affair, basically. And we got to see a lot of parts of Alaska that we normally wouldn't have gotten to see. And so we did dirt work. And so we weren't doing like the over the road stuff where they're hauling equipment and material. We were building roads and paving roads, that kind of thing, extending airport runways. And so we were on islands sometimes or way up north in these small towns. And so being able to see a lot of the state was really cool. That was awesome. But as far as like the work itself goes, not really a passion for it, I guess, in a sense.
Okay. I mean, it was very purposeful, though. I mean, everything you described was infrastructure for what Alaska is today.
Yes. Yep. Construction's a big part of it today, for sure.
Roads, airports, stuff. That's amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a purposeful job right there in itself. I mean, accessibility for people, you know, nowadays is a huge thing. And I mean, you should be proud of that. I mean, you were part of that, you know.
It was cool. It was cool.
Yeah, the roads that people drive on, the airports they come in on,
Right.
Like you can be like, oh, I built that.
Right.
Like, have you ever thought of it that way?
I have sometimes, yeah. When you're driving in certain areas, you're like, oh, crazy! Like we just did this road a couple weeks ago or a couple years ago, and so
Yeah.
that was cool for sure.
What? So I got to ask this: scariest moment truck driving, building roads. Obviously, some of them are probably like on the side of a mountain, maybe,
Yeah,
or like
yeah. Kind of where we were wasn't too crazy. Like some of those guys way up north doing it. But there are some spots where you're a little sketchy. We were on Kodiak Island, and so we had
Kodiak.
to barge everything over to extend the runway into the ocean. And
Oh,
so they had us working night shift, and Kodiak rains. All it does is rain over there in the winter. And so, as you know, you don't have a back mirror to look out behind you. You're using your side mirrors. And so it's pitch black. They don't have a lot of lights on these roads where you're getting the dirt from and then taking it down to the airport. And then you just got straight rain coming at you. And there were parts of that job that were in the ocean. Our wheels are literally in the ocean, dumping the dirt into the ocean to extend that runway out. And so stuff like that,
wow.
jobs like that. Yep.
All right. Right off the top of your head, without thinking, sketchiest moment in the tractor.
Sketchiest moment. Oh gosh. Just as several times probably where I've almost ran into people. People don't realize how fast or how long it takes for you to slow down compared to like a normal car when you're that heavy. And so probably the scariest would just be like close calls with other drivers in cars. Never had any accidents, thankfully. So that's good.
Yeah. So I do have to say before we start this episode, like I've seen ice road truckers. Like how many people have asked you that, right? Or you were on a lot of people. That's where my mind went, right?
Yeah.
Because
we didn't do that at the time. Just no ice, no winter stuff, just summer season.
Yeah.
And so I had a buddy on that show though. It's okay. Spoiler alert. That show is like so scripted. He's like, they made me cry on camera for the TV show. That kind of
really?
stuff. Yes, it was just really funny.
Yeah.
But
I figured. I mean, a lot of those are like pieced together, right?
Totally. It's reality TV.
Reality.
But you get an idea of what the train's like because they're really driving through on there. So
yeah,
pretty wild.
Well,
I can't do ice, dude. You get freaked out in your head.
Yeah. So I mean, that's pretty awesome. I mean, just being part of the infrastructure, the essentials, and stuff for daily life, expanding on, supplies, I mean, I'm sure, was that airport like, was it there before or was it new?
It was there before. Yeah.
Okay.
They just needed to make it a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So it's pretty tight coming in.
Yeah. So, I mean, one would assume, that was because like, accessibility of supplies and, whatnot and all that stuff. So very, very important. Very, very important. Yeah. So, I mean, after that, you're like, well, I guess I'll go to Arizona. Right.
Yeah.
What was that? What was that, decision leading up to that? What made you choose Arizona of all the other places? Why Arizona?
We had some family out here. So we had been probably a handful of times to visit and just kind of looking at different options in the States, trying to figure out, all right, we know Alaska, we don't really want to do this anymore. We're sick of the winter. And so Arizona made sense because we had some family here and the weather, and so that kind of sold us on it a little bit.
Gotcha.
All right, we'll try it, because if you try something and you don't like it, you can always move again. It's not crazy,
right.
So
that was the most reasonable answer to ever expect. Like, I wasn't expecting I was expecting something else, like, I was a truck driver and then like I became a ninja and then like, I decided to go to Arizona and teach people, ninja school stuff. But no, that's a reasonable answer. Like that makes sense. It wasn't, on a whim or anything like that. There was a connection there, and that makes total sense, and what was that transition like for you?
Challenging at first, just it's so different.
How so?
I knew I wanted to do real estate, but I knew it wasn't in Alaska. But moving to Arizona where you don't know anyone and trying to start over and start a different business is hard. And so And then just kind of leaving everything that you grew up with, you know, you leave your friends, you leave your family for the first time, you know, and so just challenging in that regard, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the people that you knew in Arizona, were they there and you moved like nearby, or was it like a different part of the state? Did you have a support network when you got there? You know, what part of that transition, obviously, like it's a scary move. It's a complete, like you're moving thousands of miles away,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
I may have made that up. I didn't calculate it, but we'll just go with thousands of miles away.
You're right. No,
Right?
you're right. Yeah.
But you land, you know, how much you bring with you, how much you're prepared for, you know, all this stuff like must be going through your head. Like, what if it doesn't work out? Am I making the right decision? You know, like
Mhm.
how long did it take you, right, to be like, okay, this is the right choice?
Probably a good year.
Yeah.
Yep. I just had my mom here and then my father-in-law at the time was here. And so that's it. And so I just got my real estate license right away and just went for it. Interviewed with a couple different brokerages and just went to work really. And it took like probably a good solid 2 to 3 years to make good friends here because it's hard to meet people all over again. And so yeah, it's a little lonely at first for sure. And
How
just
did
figuring
those
it
how did
out.
those introductions, like, to the now friends, right? Or
Mhm.
maybe the potential friends that didn't work out to be friends, you know, was it like, "Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm a truck driver from Alaska. Nice to meet you. I'm here to be a real estate agent." Like, how was that? I mean, that's gotta be nerve-wracking, right?
For
You know,
sure.
like, you don't have you don't have anybody. It's one thing if like the whole family moves and you're younger and you make friends in school and then like they come over, right? There's that connection, right? And it's kind of already established. But as an adult, right? And just being like, going over here and being vulnerable, right?
Mhm.
To complete strangers,
Yeah,
right?
it's weird.
I mean, what was that like and how did you get through it? How was that resiliency to just keep going and not be like this was the bad choice and go back to Alaska?
Yeah, I feel like I'm pretty outgoing in general, which is helps a little bit, I guess. And then I met a lot of people through like the work side of things. And then I kind of tried to get creative and I got out and did some volunteering and got involved with different meetups and just tried to do a lot of networking that way to like get to know people. And then just gotten lucky mainly through real estate, have met some of my closest friends here, which is really cool. And
Yeah.
so just kind of funny how that worked out. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I got to ask, right?
Mhm.
Everybody has traditions, right? And every area of the country has their own little tradition, right? Were there traditions in Alaska that you brought to Arizona, which you thought was a normal thing? And people were like, what is that?
Oh gosh. Not really, honestly. No, Alaska's just so different the way
Yeah.
they do stuff, you know?
Did
Yeah,
you,
there's not.
but did you do anything that you would normally do like in Alaska and in Arizona, like there's traditions, or you picked up on like other people's traditions, or like the town, you know, you live in? Was there something that like you were used to that you were craving that was like a tradition, whether it's a meal or whatever?
Oh, I
Um,
see what you're
you know
saying.
what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like a tradition can be anything, right? So was there something from home? Obviously, everybody, you know, they love, you know, grandma's sauce, or they love, you know,
yeah.
this or whatever the case may be. Was there something from home that you just can't find in Arizona?
Coffee shops. It's gonna sound
Really?
really weird. So back home, I don't know if you've ever seen the little tiny carts that you can drive up. There's 2 windows on each side. It looks like a little mobile home in the middle
Yeah.
with 2 windows connected. And so I don't know why they're not in the States, but back home there's one on almost every corner. And the coffee, I don't know if they're importing it from somewhere or if they're making it in Alaska, but it's so good and it's so different, you know, than being here. And so just being able to go home and like get different coffee. I know it sounds like kind of silly, but I miss that.
Well, I'm a huge coffee fan.
Are
Like,
you?
yeah, it's similar. I mean, when you dive into the coffee realm, like it's similar to like whiskey and wine connoisseurs. Like
That's true.
same thing with coffee, the bean, the flavor, the boldness, the brew. I ground my beans every morning before I brew it at work.
Okay.
and I order my coffee from Maine. Coffee
Oh,
by
no
design.
way. Okay.
Coffee
So
by
you just
design.
make coffee at home then?
Well, I have a coffee maker in my office at
Okay.
work. Yeah, and it's so good that I've started a coffee club. Not really a club. It's just
Yeah,
the 3 other coworkers that I have. And
that's awesome.
you
Are
know,
they making you make them coffee every day?
I make it every day just because it's that good
I love that.
and it spreads joy,
That's
right?
awesome.
You
Yep.
know,
So you get it.
it's like comfort. It's like food. Food's a language, right? You know, coffee's the same way. When you get around, you know, a bunch of coffee drinkers, you know, it's the same way. It's a language. You know, it's a conversation starter. It's standing around the water cooler at work, right? It's you know, it's one of those things where it forces a conversation. It takes away awkwardness, you
Mhm.
know, and it allows you to open up maybe about a conversation that you otherwise wouldn't have because you have either clients or members or whatever the case may be.
Right.
It happens everywhere, right? And
Mhm.
it's the behind closed doors, like, let me open up about my day type of thing, or, you know, my weekend or whatever the case may be. It gives that opportunity, that human moment, you know, to be able to connect, you know, and that's what I love about it, you know, and the small things like that we take for granted so often, right?
Right.
That human connection, that human moment to be ourselves,
Yeah.
right? And so many people shy away from vulnerability, right? Where vulnerability is more of a strength, right? Because, you know, if you have 2 people that are being vulnerable, right? And it doesn't have to be this mushy, cry it out or anything like that. It's just being genuine and honest and letting somebody else know something more about you. That's literally vulnerability, right? With
There's a
no
lot of people.
yeah, it scares
Yeah.
a lot of people, but that's growth. That's how you grow. That's how
Mhm.
you grow personally. That's how you grow professionally. You know, being vulnerable, like being a real estate agent. I have my real estate license. You know,
Mhm.
sometimes it's good to just be vulnerable with your clients
Yeah.
and say, "Listen, I've had a really, really, really rough day today. Please bear with me." You know, and if you have like a good client relationship, I mean, you don't have to go into details, but, you know, they may be able to maybe give you advice, maybe
Yes.
give you a perspective,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Because at the end of the day, like, that conversation has nothing to do with a real estate deal, right?
Yes.
It
Yep.
it it's not a you know, it but you gotta do it in a comfortable sense, like, you're not just gonna do it with everybody because
Mhm.
some people don't wanna hear it, right? They just wanna go buy a house,
Yeah.
right? Um but that human moment, that connection is so vital and so important to growth, right? That more people, if they just were in tune with their own human moment and the person that's in front of them,
Mhm.
right? That's truly active listening,
Right.
right?
Yes.
That
Yep.
moment is and that window closes quick and you may not get it again. And that's your opportunity to be able to connect with somebody in maybe a deeper way, help them grow, you understand them more. And that's what it's all about. That's what life is about, you know, and people
Right.
miss it so often than not.
Yep. And sometimes a small change in perspective will change your whole entire life. So
Absolutely.
you never
Absolutely.
know what kind of advice somebody has, and so no, you're
Yeah.
right. Yep.
So if you had to go back 6 years ago and give yourself advice of moving from Alaska to Arizona, what would one of like top 2 pieces of advice, whether it's maybe better prepare you, whether whatever it is, what are the top 2 things of somebody that's going to move to different state far away from what they're so used to, right? And essentially start a new life.
Yeah, the top one that I wish I would have known is that we're always taken care of. And so if you've got that pull in your heart and something on your heart to go do, whether it's scary or it's, in a different place completely, you're always going to be taken care of if you follow that nudge, right? Um, that's the big one. And so it's funny how pieces fall into place and the right people come in at the right times and make sure you can figure it out. Um, and yeah, the other one was everything is figure outable, right? Um, there's a lot of unknown, as you know, going into different things, whether it's states or work or relationships. And um, it's just important to know that you can get through it and figure anything out. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and just go for it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit on a lot of metaphors there, right? And I'm a huge, so I love metaphors.
Good. Okay.
And the reason why I love metaphors, because I like breaking them down, right? I like the understanding of why and how they were created and by who.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't know the who, but more in a sense because sometimes those metaphors they morph over time, right?
Yeah.
Based on what they mean, right? A saying, that's designed as a metaphor, whatever the case may be. You just power through it. Power through what, right?
Yeah.
Like, what am I power? I'm standing. You want me to go through the wall? Like, what am I powering through? And obviously, like that's
Metaphorically, Ryan.
yeah, metaphorically. But there's some deeper ones, right?
True. Yeah.
There's some deeper, and a lot of them are written by a lot of brilliant philosophers, right? And you get very philosophical with it. And a lot of them have to do with self-care,
True.
right? A lot of them, everything boils down to self-care.
Yeah.
Right. Understanding what we're saying, right, and why we're saying it, right, is most of the time going to allow you to listen to yourself, right? That right there sounds very confusing, right? But let me break it down. So, have you ever had a moment in your life where you go and you say something, and then all of a sudden you go, I never thought of it that way.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's how your brain processes, right? You now have an auditory thing to be able to take in to process, right? Where if you just allow it to live rent free in your head all the time, it's going to change and morph and everything else. And you're not talking through it.
Yeah.
Right. So I say to people, don't mind me. I'm in my board meeting right now. Right. because then like they tell, you ever hear people say, have a journal, write some stuff down, write your thoughts down, stuff like that.
Yep.
Because now you're reading it, right? So it's a different type of sensory type of thing. It's a way to absorb it in a different way versus a thought.
Right.
Right.
And it's a good release sometimes too, at the same time.
It is. It absolutely is. I'm going to go a little bit deeper, right? So what is a thought? Right? Something that you see and you think of something. All right. If you think about this, right? Our brain is in complete darkness, right? It can't see anything. It can't hear anything. It can't speak. It only processes, right? What the other sensories smell, taste, see, feel, hear, right? It relies on the other receptors that are going into it to be able to tell us our feeling, right? And a lot of the stuff that we do is rudimentary based on feeling. We feel good about it, we're going to do it. We feel bad about it, we may still do it, but we're still going to feel bad about it. But why? We haven't talked it out with ourselves to understand why we feel good about this, and why we feel bad about this. Right?
Yeah. Nope, you're right. Do you journal?
I would say yes, because it's an unorthodox way. Thoughts or processes or ideas or stuff like that come into my head, and I jump into my notes in my phone, and it could be as like simple words. It could be a saying I thought of or something like that. And it's a reference tool for me. Right. I have a lot of stuff. When I worked midnights as a police officer for 10 and a half years, 11 PM to 7 AM.
Graveyard.
I understand the darkness. Right.
Yes.
But one thing I was doing over that time is, and I was going through a lot of stuff. I was going through a lot of medical stuff, VA appointments, all this other stuff. And, and it left when we didn't have calls, we didn't have nothing to do. It left me with a lot of time, right? A lot of time to think, a lot of time to process, a lot of time to not realize that I wasn't getting good sleep. My thought process, my mental clarity and stuff just wasn't where it used to be, not even close.
Okay.
But I wanted to refer back to that moment,
Mhm.
right? A reference point to understand like what I was going through during that time to see later on down the road, growth, right?
Yeah.
See my resilience, my struggles, my successes, and everything else, to better understand me, understand what was going on in here, right?
Mhm. I love that.
And
Yeah.
the one thing I find though is a lot of people when you start talking about mental health or just mental in general, right?
Mhm.
Mental thought process, right? Um, I don't know why a lot of people steer away from it. It's so interesting, right? It's so interesting to understand a thought process and why we have it, right? And there's so many factors that go along with it, right? It's
Mhm.
cultural based, right? It's home based, based on family upbringings. It's
Right.
based on friends. It's based on what we've seen. It's based on our own opinions, our own feelings, and that's how we develop our thought process,
Yeah.
right? When we see things, do things, say things,
A lot of programming in there.
there's a lot of programming,
Yeah.
right? So this brings me to mindset shift,
Mhm.
right? Having a mindset shift of whether it's negative to positive, positive to positive. I don't like going positive to negative because we don't want to do that. But a mindset shift, in essence, and I don't know if you've ever dove into this at all,
Yeah,
right?
definitely. Yeah.
Um, so having a mindset shift for growth and everything else, you've done it, right? You've lived it, you've done it, and you had to shift yourself from a move, a transition, a relationship change, relationship status, stuff like that. Everybody's gone through a mindset shift. They just don't understand what it looks in a positive way.
True.
Right.
Look at the
Uh,
negative when something
you
happens.
right,
First,
right.
it feels like if we don't.
Yeah. You have to harness that resilience.
Yeah.
Right. What is some of, in that realm of things, it doesn't have to be, exactly, you know, a mindset shift type of
Mhm.
thing, but a mindset mentality, of the resilience of starting over, you know, loss, growth. What are some of the big things for you that has helped you get through stuff and you've relied on to help to hold that mindset?
Yeah. About a decade, I've been doing a lot of personal development. So I read a lot, listen to a lot of podcasts, and try to do the inner work on myself as well. Not just the outer stuff. Um, Realizing that not everything I think is true. If I have a thought that's negative, right? Because we have so many different thousands of thoughts a day, especially women. I'm not sure why that is. Um,
I didn't say it.
right. And so yeah, just realizing, okay, I don't have to believe everything I think. And then going through the hard part, trying to reframe everything that happens to you as happening for you. There's a lesson in it if you are willing to be patient and get quiet and learn that side of things. Everything truly is happening for us, right? And so whether it's loss or a relationship ending or a client decides they don't want to work with you anymore, what is that trying to teach me in this moment? Because
Right.
there's a bigger reason for it, I've learned. If
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah.
It totally does. And there's a few key takeaways from listening to, is quiet, right?
Yeah.
A lot. That silence,
Yeah.
if you don't know how to handle it, it's very awkward,
Mhm.
right? Especially in conversation, right? And anybody that watches this episode, listens to it, go up and talk to somebody, like have like a conversation and then just stop talking and don't say anything until they ask you what's wrong with you, right? Because silence is awkward, right? We as humans, especially people that are outgoing, right?
Mhm.
And even if you're, introvert, extrovert, it doesn't matter. Even introverts, um, the silence, it's just human nature, right? We have to have music going. We have to have, something to have that stimulus, right?
Mhm.
And we struggle a lot of times, right, of being comfortable in that silence, right? That silence is a great opportunity, right, to be able to listen to yourself, gain knowledge, right, of what's going on with you. Maybe sitting in silence, like, I don't know if you do breathing exercises or anything like that, but, doing breathing exercises and really like, you know, finding out what's going on with you, and that breathing exercise 100% helps, calm and everything. And that silence becomes a little bit easier, right?
Mhm.
And then that's where I don't know if you meditate, I don't do yoga. I'm not very flexible.
Come on, Ryan.
I tried it once, right? My
Yeah.
wife set it up. I came back from Afghanistan. We had a spa day. Um, Yoga was on the menu, and it was me and about like 10 other females. And I'm doing this angry cat, downward dog, and sleeping child poses and all this other stuff. And it's like, good job, ladies, good job. And I'm like, and guy, you know, and I'm the type of guy, you put me in a yoga class, like that downward dog, I'm making a cat noise, like
Yeah.
I'm that
Making
guy.
jokes.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
she did it again for my birthday this past November, right? And facial was on the schedule now. And I'm like, here we go with something else that I don't do. Mask goes on, and my first instinct is soon, because you keep your eyes closed, everything.
Mhm.
First instinct, right? Could you guess what my first instinct? Think mask. What's my first
Jim
instinct?
Carrey.
Close. That would have been a good one. That
Okay.
would have been good. I'm Batman.
What is it?
I'm Batman.
Batman.
Right?
Is she in the room with you?
No,
Okay.
not. So, like, I make this person completely awkward.
Yeah.
Like, but I am laughing hysterically, right? And like that is, you bring me to the spa, that's what you get.
Right. Yeah. This is your fault.
Like,
No.
yep, it's your fault. It's not mine. Like,
Hey, I like that she's getting you out of your box though and trying new stuff with you.
yeah, and I'm not opposed to it,
Yeah.
right? I'm not opposed to trying new stuff. The one thing is you won't catch me scheduling it for myself, right?
Yeah.
It's just not. It's not one of my things, right?
Yeah.
I'll schedule a tea time for golf. I'll jump on the motorcycle.
Mhm.
There's interest just like anybody else. I don't have an interest of scheduling a spa day. It's not my, I enjoy it in the moment if I'm forced to do it, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not scheduling it,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
I enjoy going. It's like a day where we don't have any distractions. I enjoy that part. I could do without facials. Massage, I'm one of those people where it's like, okay, I'll schedule a massage, boom, done. Hour and a half later,
Mhm.
go about my day, right?
Have you done a
But
pedicure?
with my daughter,
Okay.
yeah, girl dad. I mean, it
Yep.
is what it is. I'm not gonna lie. That's the foot one, right?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, so the yoga first time, right?
Mhm.
After Afghanistan, um, a pedicure was scheduled, and I feel so bad for that person. Like, so bad. Like, she probably was collecting Afghanistan sand in my feet.
Yeah.
Like, I feel 100% bad. Now that I grossed everybody out and whatever. It is what it is. That's the story. I'm sticking to it. I can't change it. It is what it is. So I want to get to a serious note because we talked about this, and I think you can really help some people. I've been through it. A lot of people have been through it. And we all deal with loss.
Mhm.
We all deal with it in a different way. Sometimes we don't know how to deal with it,
Yeah.
and sometimes we just have to figure it out as we go. The days get a little bit easier, but sometimes my wife and I still have it. 2021, we had 5 losses in our family.
Gosh. I'm so
Her
sorry.
grandmother,
Yeah.
her father, a couple cousins, so I understand. especially when it's people that are close to you. And it gets a little bit easier. It does,
Yeah.
but I think that us, us as people, we need to do a better job of communicating how we do that. How do we get through those barriers? And if you would, no pressure.
Told you can ask anything.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm an open book.
it was your father.
Yes. Yep. My dad passed in July. So about 6 months ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, still fresh. I mean, I was
Very.
telling you about 2021. I mean, it still feels fresh for us some days.
Yeah.
And have you had those days? Like, so her dad was, a smoker. And there'll be once in a while, like and we don't smoke.
Right.
And nobody's allowed to smoke in the house, right? So there's no reason I should smell cigarette smoke.
Right.
And there's days that we've had that, and it's like, whoa, like he's here, like, if you had those moments.
There's been a few, not with like the smoke smell, but just a few like just a few like little things. I've had lights go off and on, stuff like that. I was in a meditation. I was really deep in one because meditation's helped a lot through this process. And I felt like somebody stuck their hand in my stomach to the point where I thought somebody was in my house because I had my headphones on. Yeah. Just like a few things like that have happened, and I like to think it's him.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Just a few little stuff like that. So yeah, it's been a rough 6 months, dude, for sure. Yeah. I'm sorry if you guys have gone through it too. It's awful.
The conversations get easier.
Yeah.
The conversation, and it's more, you more lean towards like remembering the good times now, versus I feel like sometimes there's like, we naturally feel like guilty, like we couldn't say one more thing, or we wanted to do this, or we had this planned, or something like that. And it can go both ways. Like we blame ourselves, or we blame them, or whatever the case may be. Depending on the circumstances, obviously. And that's grief, right? The sadness, that there's happiness involved with it because you remember memories.
Yeah.
Right. And those happy memories make you sad because you want them back. Right.
Yeah. My brother had his first baby this morning.
Oh my God. Congratulations. Oh my God. You announced it on Everlasting Veteran.
I did. And so besides like being so happy for him, the second thought is, oh my God, Dad's not here to see this. And so it's like that duality of like happiness and sadness can coexist at the same time. Yeah. That's a trip. And that's going to take some getting used to with the big life stuff like this, Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that, and I dealt with it a lot, because my grandfather was 23 years Navy. Yeah. And like I was very close to my grandfather. And I actually have like some of his Navy stuff in here and my stuff. And behind me, the kneeling soldier has my dog tags and his dog tags. So there's a lot of meaning in this studio. And like I built this, with my own hands, and put a lot of passion and feeling into it because I want people to like have their own feeling with that. They can connect with it. And there's so much stuff in here, whether it's veteran or not, that it's so connecting, and people will be like, oh, I've seen that before. My grandfather had that, or like my cousin had that, so it makes a comfortable space and it allows for conversation. And the one thing with my grandfather, when I joined the Army, my mom like pretty much disowned me. Well, just because like my grandfather in his time, he was World War II, Vietnam, Korea War, like she had a lot of rough issues, upbringing and stuff. Back then you drank away your problems, and coming back from wars and everything else. I knew him as a sober man, right? I was born, and he never had alcohol ever, right? I was his first grandkid. He had a CB radio in his Bronco.
Awesome.
I had a call sign, so that was like my first introduction at like 4 or 5 years old of having call signs, which then in turn went into the military, right? and you have your own call signs. And but when I joined the military, right, he told me, he's like, this is the proudest moment in my life for you, right? Because like he dedicated his life to build his family a life, through the military, right? Him and his brother enlisted in Jamaica Plains, New York, forged their parents' signatures to go into the military, and went through three of some of the worst wars in American history to come out on the other side to start a family and build a good life for them. And he says he owes it to the military for it. So like, and it made me who I am today, and
thank you, by the way, for your service, dude. Seriously.
Oh, I appreciate it. But like my stepdad, Marines, Army, my dad, Army, my grandfather, Navy, my uncle, he was Navy. So it's almost everybody around me was in the military.
Yeah.
Right. So I originally did the, and this was like early 2000s. So like still the push to like, you have to go to college first or you never amount to anything, like was still going on. And, I made a choice myself, right, at a mere 19 years old to say, I'm going in the military. Like, no, like didn't ask anybody else. Like that was like my thing. Like, and like, leading up to that and everything, like, so, and my mom and my relationship are significantly better.
Good.
Since then.
She's probably sad her baby was leaving.
Yeah.
And worried about you.
She's a great mom. Like, I'm not like I'll put it this way. My mom and dad got divorced when I was about like 5 years old. Right. My stepdad is pretty much like the only male figure I know, growing up, as a father, him and my grandfather. And, I remember my brother and sister are too young, but I remember a mother raising 3 kids by herself as a receptionist, starting in a law firm, working her way up to senior paralegal and everything else, and closing these big deals and everything. And I think that's why, like, I got into business and real estate. She was on the legal side, right? So I was like understanding. So, like I said, it's one of those things where, like, if it's in your environment, in your house and stuff, it builds who you are without you even realizing it sometimes. And I wish I listened, a little bit more to myself, right? When I wanted to, right? Versus waiting sometimes, and that's just the message for is like, listen to your gut, listen to your heart, listen to what you think is best for you and your trajectory,
Your body knows,
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, it's such a difficult thing to go through sometimes, a loss of really anybody that's close to you, right? It doesn't even a friend, has the same impact, right? And, especially if it's a really close friend and like you guys see each other all the time, at least once a week, and what was your dad's originally from Alaska too?
California.
California.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was on a drilling rig in the oil field since he was 18. And so that's why they stayed there. Yeah.
Okay.
Big oil field family. So yeah.
Oh, nice. Nice. Yeah. So when, when your dad was around, he sounds like an amazing individual, hardworking man, like family man. I've heard very small bits and pieces, but the small ones I do, and I actively listen, like, so, and I pick up on like, just how you, you talk about like was your brother, right? Having a baby?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Your brother having a baby, and obviously, you wish he was there. Starting in an oil rig at 18, right? Young age, direction, purpose driven, hard worker, everything else, has a family, sounds like an incredible individual,
He really was.
What is one of the top one traits that you would say that you love the most about him?
the thing I love the most about him, his heart, he was just a very good person to his core. He's a strong but silent type. He was an old cowboy, but just a big heart and love for his family. Um, my sister and I were talking about it. If something ever happened with the family, like exciting news or, he'd be the first one to be like, hey, do you hear about this? Do you hear about this over here?
Yeah.
And so I've got some older half siblings that are amazing. And our mom's amazing too. He was just, yeah, he was just very special. Very
Yeah.
special man. Hard work taught me what hard work was. Worked his butt off for us our whole lives, you know.
Would you would
And
you say would you say he was your biggest cheerleader?
yeah, he's the one of the like small few people in my life that never told me I couldn't do something.
That's
As
awesome.
crazy as it was, even semi truck driving. He'd be like, "All right, cool, let's do it." He was always supportive and always like right behind us kids, whatever we wanted to do, even if he didn't agree with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you did say that you do meditation, right?
Yes. Yep.
And it's helped you through. What are some of those aspects that like you've been able to take out of meditation to be able to continue to have the amazing resilience that you do have?
Yeah, I do a lot of guided meditations. I'm trying to get better at the ones where you can just sit in silence. It's kind of harder. But like a lot of work with like Joe Dispenza's meditations, kind of along those lines. Um, and so like especially on days that are really hard, um, sometimes instead of trying to fight through that or to solve a problem, meditation will take you out of that emotion. It's just like taking a nap. It's like, all right, we're not going to fix whatever's wrong right now. So being able to pause, and just take that time and meditate and breathe and kind of ground yourself back in has been so helpful. Sometimes twice a day on days that are, right after his passing was awesome to be able to ground back in,
Yeah.
Yep.
Now,
So
excuse me, are you a believer of like, if your feet connect with the ground and that connection and like everything like that of like full connection, the natural connection with the earth?
yeah, yep. I've heard good studies on that too. Being
Yeah.
able to ground yourself outside, totally. And some people touch trees or go barefoot on the grass, or is that what
Yeah.
you're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
You do that?
It's a real thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I need to try that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I started last year. I would lay in the grass, like facing the sun,
Mhm.
because they say turn to light, right? And immerse yourself in it,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not a huge biblical like dive in, but everybody has to have a belief, right?
Right.
Higher power type of thing. I'm more in like the spiritual side of things.
Same.
You know,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of good that comes from that, right? And
Mhm.
not just in a metaphorical sense, right?
Mhm.
There's so much good that comes from it, and it allows you to take that pause. It allows you to slow life down,
Yeah.
you know, take the moment for what it is and allow you to process. That's one of the big things, right?
Mhm.
Giving yourself time to process,
Right.
right? And I mean, have you found yourself sometimes going, Ashley, slow down. I gotta process this. Let me think about it. You know, like
Yep.
that. That's what I'm talking about. And how do so on the tough days, right? On the tough
Mhm.
days where you just you want to be like, I need to go and do this, so I can hit a hard reset and then I'll address it, but you just can't, right? Because you're in doing something, you're with a client, you're in studies, you're doing a mortgage thing or you're doing a deal, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
What is some of the techniques, right? Because we all go through it. Like we just want to run and escape, right?
Yes.
We want to run and escape that emotion because we
Mhm.
want to ground ourselves because we know that's going to help us. But we can't because life is taking over. How do
Yep.
you get through? How do you get through that and get onto the other side through that barrier?
Gratitude's been a big one. I know that word's tossed around a lot, but it's true. Um, Thinking about everything that you have in your life going well and just bringing yourself back to that headspace. Because it's hard, especially when you're spiraling and you have stuff you have to do, but you don't have any energy or desire to. Gratitude's been a big part of that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do have, and there's some people that look at me like I am freaking crazy when I say this. I have this method.
Yeah.
I did not make it up, right? If I did, I'd be probably the coolest person ever. But I have this thing. It's called Control Alt Delete. Have you ever heard of it?
No. What is it?
Control yourself, alter your mindset, and delete the negativity.
Okay.
And
how do you use it?
So controlling yourself has to do with an emotional, mental sense and everything else, right? You have to control your mind space. You have to control what's in front of you. You have to control only what you can control, right? The variables that you can control, because that's how you gain control for yourself. You can't control others. You can't control the noise. You can't control other variables that you don't have control over. So you focus on controlling yourself. You control.
Okay.
And then what you're speaking of is altering your mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're starting to not think negative. You're bringing those positive thoughts, right? And you're altering your mindset. And you can use it in a small sense, in a brief moment or over time, right? And you alter your mindset, right? You do that mindset shift. You have a more positive mindset. And then you start to delete the negativity, right? You don't necessarily maybe forget about it, because you have to understand where you've come from to where you want to go. Right. But in that moment, or for what the trajectory you want to be on for your life in a more positive way, you have to delete it. Right. And the hard choices sometimes is people. Right.
Yeah.
And that, and you can apply Control Alt Delete to so many different aspects in your life, but it really starts with you and only you. Right. True. You can only control you. You can only alter your mindset, and you can only delete what's negative to your life. And that's where you get the Control Alt Delete.
Okay. I love that. I'm going to try that.
Yeah. I tell you, IT guys hate me for saying it, because they're like, no, Control Alt Delete on a computer. I'm like, you're just, you're out here, man. Like, it's a quick reminder, right? Of that mindset shift. Right. It's a method to use in many methods, right? Where it's easy to remember, right? Where somebody says something to you, it may be somebody you may not even know, right? Where you're having an off day, right? This happens to all of us. And it's just that straw that broke the camel's back. There's another metaphor. Straw that broke the camel's back, right? Where like, it's just that one thing that somebody says to you, and you interpret it as like it's a personal attack, and it's not really, right? And you're just having this off day, right? And before you say something, you control yourself, right?
Yep.
Control that emotion. Control from you wigging out on the person that maybe they deserve it, right? But what good does it do? Doesn't do any good for you, right? So you
already have a bad day.
Yeah. Or maybe it came out wrong, right?
True.
How many times have you said something, or I've said something, or anybody said something that you're like, wow, that sounded really, really bad.
Real bad.
I apologize. Like that, I sound like an a-hole. Like, my bad.
Yeah.
Like, but that's where it can be applied too, right? Just start making sense a little bit, And it's just one of those things I picked up along the way to easily remember a quick 3-step process to bring you back to center, right? That balance, right? And it's just a quick 3-step process, instead of being like, breathe, do this and do this and do this. No, I'm just going to Control Alt Delete, right? And it can just be a straight mental dump for, that 3-second period in your life, and like allows you to move on to be able to continue your day. And then you can address it later, right? How you're feeling about it, right? You're controlling yourself in the moment. You're controlling yourself afterwards. You're altering your thought process, your mindset to that event or that day, and you're telling yourself, you know what? I don't need that.
Right.
It's not good for me, It's negative, right? And it could be a person, a place, or a thing,
Mhm.
right? And it's very, very simple. And once you start applying it, you're going to be like, wow, Ryan's a genius. No, I'm just kidding.
The texting really works.
Yeah, I didn't come up with it. I can't take credit for it. I picked it up along the way, but that's the whole point, of what I do is whether somebody thinks I'm crazy for it, whether they're going to use it, whether they're not going to use it, um, sharing that perspective, sharing that journey of life, right? Of what I've picked up along the way, what's helped me, maybe, especially in the military community or anybody that uses acronyms, right? It's a very easy thing to remember, and be like, oh, you remember on the keyboard, Control Alt Delete,
Right.
Use it in life, your processor, right? That Control Alt Delete stops the computer, right, from functioning,
Right.
right? You Control Alt Delete, right? You stop and pause, right? And that's the best way I can describe it.
I like it.
So,
No. Very good.
So how's real estate going?
It's good. It's crazy, but nope, it's good. I love it. I truly do. Truly.
You don't have to say what brokerage you're with or anything like that. But as far as like a personal standpoint, what do you love most about real estate? Other than the obvious, like, I love people, I love talking to people. Don't give me a bland statement, all right? What do you love about real estate?
I fell in love with real estate for the passive investment side. And so I wanted to, long story short, get my license and help other people buy real estate to help their retirement. And so I've kind of done everything that realtors do, but my passion for it is making people money with it. Yeah. And so I'm not sure what that's going to look like. I'd like to get to the point to where I'm full-time on the investment side, whether it's building my own investments and helping other people do that too.
Nice.
Yeah. So
I have to say, you are a very strong independent entrepreneur and businesswoman.
We're trying. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah. I mean, just the things you told me from, and we joke about, truck driver to real estate, whatever. No, it showcases the strong independent woman that you are, right? And it showcases like how, like, you're not afraid to do anything.
Yeah.
And that's something like you really like, and if you already do it, good, but if you're not doing it, should be celebrating, right? Because
Life's so short, it's just gotta try stuff and be afraid to suck at it, right?
Yeah. I mean, the most successful people fail, right? More than they even talk about.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's so many failures that it becomes just part of it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's life.
Yeah.
Right? You have to fail to know how to succeed. Right? And that is the most cliche thing I've ever heard myself say or anybody else say, but it's so freaking true.
You and your metaphors today.
Oh, and the metaphors. I love the metaphors. I've tried to create a sentence of metaphors, right?
Yeah.
And it is absolutely hilarious when you try to start putting them together. I'm serious. Try it sometime. Did
you want it to make sense when you were putting them together?
Yeah, I wanted to try. Yeah, like actually a sentence of like metaphors. Don't step off the edge, or like. I mean, it's so hilarious. Like when you actually try to make them make sense together, right? You can do it. I'm not going to give it away. There is one sentence that you go, oh my God. Like, and like try it one time because it will actually make you laugh. Try the ones that like are well known.
Yeah.
And then try to make a sentence. Just use 3. It doesn't make sense, and it doesn't make sense after that. Just use 3 metaphors in a row. Right. And try to make a sentence of it where it actually makes sense. And then you're going to be like, what am I doing? Like, what? Like, who came up with these? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'll give
It's
it a
one of
shot.
those, it's
give
one
it
of
a
those
go.
weird things that I do that makes me laugh because I'll look up metaphors because the well-known ones and new ones and stuff like that, ones that we use all the time,
Right.
right? And try to understand because I've started taking like a more deeper dive, into the mental health realm and everything else, and that's really where the root of it, where it comes from. And then I don't know. One day I was just I don't know goofing off, and I was like, let me try to make a sentence out of these,
Yeah.
and it's a fun game. It's a
Okay.
fun game.
I'll give it a
It's one of those things. Like I'm gonna say it just because it is funny. This is how home card games or board games are invented, right?
Yeah.
If you the book, the box of metaphors, right, of a game to play with like your friends that come over, and you
Right.
have to like create a sentence given the metaphors, with the metaphors,
Dude,
but
you could create a game yourself and just sell that.
I know I just gave the $1 million
You
idea
did.
away. So
You just screwed it all up, didn't you?
chop that out of the episode. That's how my mind works sometimes.
Yeah.
It is what it is, and that's how I enjoy life because I don't know. I find it fun, right?
Yeah.
And there's a select few that side of my life find it fun, when I come up with these weird ideas. Because I
You're
connect.
monetizing that.
Oh, yeah. It is what it is. I am who I am. I can't change it. I can. That's another thing too. I just thought about that. I am who I am. I can't change it. But yet we strive for growth and success, which in turn means we have to change.
Right. Are you writing that down right now?
Oh, I totally read it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. But it's stuff like that. I'll say it out loud and be like, wait a second. You know what I mean? Like, how many times have you stopped and like actually thought about stuff like that?
A few. Yeah, for sure.
Like
Yeah.
that's when you start diving deeper into like a thought process, which is, I love it. I absolutely love it. And it allows me to like understand, like, I'll stop saying something like that. I'm going to stop saying that. I am who I am. Like, I'm not going to change.
Yeah.
Like, that is some BS. Like, I want to change. I want to grow. I want to do better.
Our words are very powerful. You got to be very careful.
Yeah, that involves change.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we say, I am who I am. I'm not going to change because we're trying to show strength. Right? I think
Right? Okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that's kind of why we say it. I am who I am. I'm not going to change for somebody else. I'm going to change for me, maybe. But that's not what the words are.
True.
And if we slow down and kind of think about that, like I just did, I went, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. To what I'm trying to do. Like, yeah, I want to change.
Right.
But yeah. Yeah, so you got any questions for me? I mean, I've been spitballing some questions to you. We've been talking,
I'm gonna let you go. This is your show.
You
what do you do like, so no more yoga for you, but like what else keeps you grounded? Like when you're going through hard stuff, what's your go-to?
I smudge. I have kind of my own routine of silence. I actually do enjoy silence. I've learned to enjoy silence more so now than I ever have. A lot of it has to do with either a combination of things: deployment, military side of things, police department, dealing with people, dealing with problems, dealing with hectic situations. There's a lot of stimulus that happens when you're in those careers, and I wore a uniform and boots for almost 19 years, 18 years, something like that. And in a combination, 8 years military, 11 and change in policing, so I took one uniform off and put on another.
Yeah.
There was only a 6-month gap in between getting out of active duty and going into policing, and that was basically the hiring process, which is a very quick hiring process. Normally it takes like a year or two. So I had no downtime. I had no downtime to figure out who I am outside of the military. Right now I'm Officer Landry, right? And everything that comes along with that, having the uniform on, people, have certain images of police officers, right? But they don't know me. They don't know Ryan.
Yeah.
Right. In the military it was Sergeant Landry, right? And a lot of guys or before that, Specialist Landry or whatever, they know me as Landry, right? A lot of those guys I felt closer to than anybody else in the world. But there's some of those guys who could be like, what was his first name? We all called each other by our last names.
True.
Unless like you're like super close with the people and you hang out on the weekends and stuff like that. You may not remember their first name, Yeah. And that's just how it was, and it's just part of the culture and everything else. And even if you knew their first name, you still called them by their last name, and so, and then the thing is like, I really started this journey, physically and mentally. I would say, let's see, we're in 2025. So, probably like right after COVID, and then I really, really started taking a deep dive, probably about the beginning of 2021. I got a swift kick in the butt to like go to the VA and get checked out and, apply for my benefits and, figure out what's going on with me physically, and really, really just doing the self-care I should have done, years ago, right. And there was a lot of times where and I still have those moments, right, where I feel lost. I feel like I'm not doing enough,
Right. Like you're not far enough ahead.
I'm not far enough ahead. I'm not, I'm not putting out enough, to people that I care about, stuff like that. They're like, cause everybody deals with what they've gone through or what they're going through. It gets a little bit easier as you keep going, but we all have those days, those weeks, those months, right? What it comes down to is like managing it, a little bit better, where it only becomes a portion, of your day, right? And you can quickly turn it into a positive, or a portion of your week and turn it into a positive.
Instead of spiraling for.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of times, especially, I mean, working nights naturally, right?
It's hard. It's so hard on your body.
Lack of sleep apnea, insomnia, hallucinations. I finally got like a sleep study done a couple years ago. I stopped breathing like 47 and a half times an hour, immediate CPAP, the laundry list of like medical ailments, like, and I'm not the worst off, right? And I'm not in the best, position, like as far as like VA, and I still have follow-up appointments I got to do and everything else, especially appointments, MRIs and everything else. But like, I didn't do that like early on, because like every other veteran, I'm like, there's somebody else that like needs it. There's, it's not me, and the denial and the guilt if I go do it. And I don't know why, like it was a pride thing, I think, like you're so groomed, especially for war and everything else. Like, here's Tylenol, drink water. Right. And that was the thing. Like, don't talk about it. You're good. Suck it up, drive on, power through it. All these small little things are like, built this stigma, right? Where
you guys are taught to not complain and just suck it up and go, as men too, and in general. So
yeah, it's so true, and it's one of those things where I'm like, you know what? I mean, I'm not getting, like, nothing's working. Like, what are the variables, right? What
Mhm.
are the variables? And then, like, some of the stuff too is like the job I was in. You know, I love policing, I love helping people and everything else, but that was one of the variables I could change, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, is it a difficult decision? Yeah, there's some aspects that's a difficult decision of uprooting yourself from one career to another,
Mhm.
right? And you know, what I was doing and what I'm doing now, for the job, I'm working with veterans all the time, right? And military and their families and everything else, and that I've immersed myself in it, you know, into my community, right? And the most purposeful, meaningful thing anybody can do is immerse themselves into something that helps others that's part of their own life,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And that's what made the decision easy. And because I can now have a conversation with somebody across the hall that I work with, a member that comes into the facility.
Mhm.
It's a lock facility, membership only, right? So
Awesome. Yeah.
anybody that's in there, you know, military member, active duty guard, reserve, veteran, or immediate family member, right? So you know you're going to walk into somebody that can relate to you,
True. Yeah.
right?
And they're going
Whether
through the
it's
same stuff.
staff member, you know, a member of the facility, volunteers, whatever the case may be,
Mhm.
you know, you can be a volunteer and not have any of those connections, but you can remain a volunteer, right? But there's a certain level of empathy, you know, just as people, right?
Right.
And having an understanding and perspective. And that's why, like, when I told you, like, hey, everlasting veteran, like, it's not just veterans,
Yeah.
right? Because that perspective gained from somebody else can be anybody,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and strengths, struggles, successes, and failures,
Mhm.
you know, and all that encompassing is the great part of being vulnerable,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
And you think you're on an island sometimes, but everybody's going through it on some level. Usually, if you start getting vulnerable and talking to people about it, like
Yeah.
you were mentioning. So, no, it's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. And you know, I think a lot of people are starting to pick up on it,
Yeah.
you know, more
Yeah.
so now. You know, where it's like, I mean, I don't know, this country was kind of in a weird place in like 2020 and 2021.
Mhm.
Um, you know, but I think a lot of it had to do with so this reminds me, I had a comedian on here, Marty Caproni. Shout out to
Oh,
Marty.
sweet.
If
Yeah.
if you know him?
No, I've heard the name. I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to look at the episode. Look up
yeah,
the episode.
yeah. So Marty was one of like the first guests. So I met Marty. I actually had a comedy club at Mohegan Sun. And I said, dude, you're awesome. You want to come on my podcast? And you know, he's like, what's it called? I was like, Everlasting Veteran. He's like, are you a veteran? I said, yeah. He's like, done. Like, you're a
Oh,
veteran, everlasting done. Right. So
that's so cool.
he lives in Mass, probably about an hour and a half away from me.
Mhm.
And you know, the one thing that he said to me and stuck with me that makes the most sense over COVID and everything else, it's like it put all of us in like this globe, right? This little shaker, and we went like this and we dumped everybody out and just said, figure it out.
Pretty
Right.
much. Yeah.
Like that's literally what happened,
Yeah.
right? And so naturally what happens is people got used to the seclusiveness and being alone, and
Mhm.
then they actually had to interact with people, right?
Yeah.
So like how
Mhm.
we're talking right now was 2 years of somebody's life.
So crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you had to go back to personal interactions, you know, and some people just couldn't do it,
Yeah.
you know? And you know, I think it's one of those things that we have to understand, especially with technology and social media and all this other stuff,
Mhm.
is it's a tool, right?
Yeah.
It's not meant to run our life. It's not
True.
meant it's not meant to, like, for instance, I talk about all the time for social media especially,
Mhm.
I use it for business. I use it for promotion. I use it for, putting out positivity, everything like that.
Right.
I use it for a tool, right? I use it in that aspect, but there's some people that, they are constantly checking how many followers I have. Do people like my post?
Yeah.
Did somebody put an angry face? What the heck? All this
the
other stuff.
dopamine hit.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you guys have like a Facebook community forum and stuff where you are?
For the town or for?
Yeah, like for the town and stuff that you're in.
Yeah. There's quite a few different groups here for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many times have somebody like commented something off the wall, right? And then you have everybody coming out of the woodworks and like essentially bashing the person, right? And it has nothing to do with what they just said, or the person like posts something and it's like trying to be helpful, or it's like a question that probably requires a very simple answer, but the people are just like just so rude, not decent and stuff like that. And you'll actually have people comment in the comments, I'm here for the comments.
Totally.
Right?
Yes.
And it's like what are we doing, people?
I know.
Like, what are we doing?
Some of the real estate ones, dude, they're the worst. You're like, what? And then people can see your name and your face on here, like, and you're writing that stuff on here. Like,
yeah,
it's insane.
Yeah. I think a lot of people forget, like, they forget their surroundings, right? Reading the room, right?
Yep.
There's another one. Read the room.
There's another one. Yep. You're gonna have to go back through and listen and write these all down.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, reading the room for me is like so many different things, like physically reading the room, like in a tactical way.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like an actual like metaphorical sense to it. And then, there's another one I completely forgot, but it is what it is. There's like 3 different things. But that's the essence of it, is people just forget like why things are started for what they're started for. Like a forum, it's meant for information and communication of what's going on in the neighborhood, right?
Yeah, help people. Yeah,
help people
collaborate.
Hey, listen, there's an accident over here. Oh, thanks for posting. Awesome.
Found your lost dog.
Yeah. People, they'll be nice. They'll put, prayers, hope nobody's hurt, whatever. And then you get those like jackwagons. They'll throw in there like, oh, they're probably on their phone. They're like just irrelevant comments that they
not necessary.
Yeah, they do nothing for the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you ever heard the term keyboard warriors?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean they're in full force lately, and people just gotta ignore it, Yeah. So all right, before we wrap this up, you got any other questions for me?
I was gonna see what your thoughts were about like balancing business and fun. Like, because there's two different sides of the spectrum, right? It's like, okay, grind it out for 10 years and then have fun and travel and do what you want. And there's other people that are like, hey, life is short. We got to do some stuff we enjoy while we're grinding and working. And so where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I don't believe, I mean, I'm a walking proof of it. I don't believe that you have to stay in a spot, for a pension just for the pension, right? Mm-hmm. I could have stayed another 8 years in policing, had a pension, collect the pension,
right?
And I wanted more to life, right? I wanted more personally, professionally, everything else. I started a new job about four months ago. I'm going on vacation in February to Disney.
Good.
Right. So you have to have that work-life balance. You have to have those hard reset times. Mm-hmm. Right. And I'm not a huge fan of staycations, right? That's a stupid term. Like maybe you take a Sunday after, maybe you take a Saturday, Sunday and you chill, right? But you don't take a week and just stay in your house. Like that's what you do when like you're sick and like you have to have soup and lay in bed and rest and everything else.
Yeah.
A staycation, get out, do stuff, right? You're doing something that you normally don't do in your weekly routine, mm-hmm. right? Where it allows you to hit the hard reset button, right? Where if there's a bunch of stuff to do in town, right? Or on the other side of the state or whatever the case may be, like get out and do it, do something new. One of my biggest things too is trying something new at least once a year,
I love that.
right?
Yep.
Trying
For sure.
something new at least once a year. I know some people they try doing a different place to eat if they like going out to eat, right? They do a
Mhm.
different place to eat every single weekend, right? And they do it within like a 3-hour radius,
Oh, that's smart.
and
Yeah.
so
Check out.
they'll check out something, and they make time for it, right?
Mhm.
That's the biggest thing is you have to build it, especially in a busy schedule, right? Where you're career driven, right?
Right.
You're entrepreneur focused, right? I built this 500 square foot studio in 3.5 months, ground up,
Yeah.
right? And I was working midnights at the time, right? So when I was done, what did you think I did?
You stayed in there a lot.
Right?
Used
I
it. Yep. Hung out.
I didn't go on
Did
vacation,
some filming.
right?
Right.
Episode 1 in the new studio, right? I did episodes before this, but first episode in the studio was the following week. I moved in. I was moving stuff in, furniture and everything else on Christmas Day,
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Just all
right?
excited. Yeah. I
Yeah,
would be
all
too.
excited, everything
Yep.
else. But I was doing something I loved doing,
True.
right? I
Yeah.
was doing something that I was passionate about. I was doing something. So that's one of the big differences, right? When you're doing something that you love, you're passionate about,
Mhm.
it's not work,
True.
right?
Yeah.
When you start seeing it as work and it's just to pay the bills, right? To keep the lights on and everything else, it's work, right? But when you're doing something you're passionate about, you're connecting with people, whether it's real estate, and I have my real estate license, it's in referral status, just my transition and everything else going on. I love the connection with people, right?
Yeah.
It's probably something I won't continue to do for the rest of my life, but it's something I wanted to do, right? Something I
Mhm.
wanted to strive for, see, do it. I did it, without being like, "Hey, you got your license? Hey, you got your I just did it. I'm like, "Hey, I want to go get my real estate license."
Yeah.
Right? And
Yep.
I signed up for the classes and my wife's like, "Why?" I'm like, "'Cause I want it." Like,
Yep.
but I have that drive in me to go, I want something more. I want to learn more. Like, and it's a personal growth thing, right?
Yeah.
And there's a professional growth side to it too. But it
Mhm.
started out as a personal growth. And that if you always start with it's a personal growth, right? Because you got to do it for you first,
Right.
right? Not because the lights have to, yeah, maybe you got to take a job to hold down the fort. But at the end of the day, when you really are starting to deep dive into personal and professional growth,
Mhm.
especially professional growth, it has to start with you first. You have to want it for yourself, not
100%.
for any other reason other than that you want to do it and you're going to see where it goes, you know? And if it's something you're passionate about, right? Then it just
Mhm.
becomes part of your daily activities, right? Just like going and
Just
playing
normal
golf.
life.
Yeah. Just
Yep.
like going and playing golf, just like people that love to surf, just like whatever. It just becomes part of your daily activities. It just becomes part of the schedule. However, you do have to take a break from that schedule,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because you just and me and everybody else, right? In order to appreciate what you've built, what you have, and notice where you want to go,
Mhm.
you have to take a step back and have perspective for yourself.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that,
I think that helps with creativity too, which is good.
oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I know you expected a very short answer, but you
No, I
weren't
love this. It's
you
awesome.
weren't gonna you weren't gonna get a short answer with me,
Yeah.
right? Because I don't believe short answers allow people to understand either A, the person they're asking, or B, in a perspective standpoint,
Yeah.
right? A true perspective that you want to gain from that person, right? So short answers aren't on this playing field at all. You have to have an explanation, which is a long answer, to the different facets, the onion, right? Peeling back the onion of the different layers
Yep.
to the question that's asked, right? And that's so important when you're trying to understand what you're asking to, is how do you want to apply it in your life, right? As a real estate agent and doing all this stuff and growth, there's going to be work involved, right? And only you, yeah, a lot of work.
Yeah.
Only you are going to be able to know when it's time to take a break.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
You can take advice, right? But that work-life balance or that passion-life balance, right? You have to understand what allows you to center yourself, right, on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Right. And the I would say this is there's two things that my grandmother told me. One, and this goes with the be 100% for yourself to be 100% for somebody else, is she told, and I developed that over time, then going into adulthood. She told me you have to worry about number one. That's it. And everything else will fall into place.
Smart woman.
Yes. Strong Irish woman.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
So you have to worry about number one first and everything else will fall into place. The next thing that she said is you can't control what you can't control. And if you focus on trying to control what you can't control, you're going to become exhausted and then you can't control yourself and what you want to control.
So true.
And at 9 years old, when she starts saying this stuff to me, I'm like, what are you talking about? I just want
whatever, Grandma.
can I get a Pop-Tart or a hot dog? Like, you know, but a lot of these teachings that we get, from our parents, our friends, and other family members and stuff like that, there's a lot that we can learn from it. Right. And that's where that active listening comes in. Right. Think about this. Have you ever had a day where somebody's been trying to give you advice because they care about you, but you just didn't want to listen?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's those days that we need to dig deep and be resilient and listen, because it's that perspective that's going to allow you to gain your own perspective and trigger what you need to do for yourself. Yeah. And those are the hardest moments, because we want to still be strong for ourselves and we don't want to show vulnerability and we don't want to show weakness and we don't want to show those people that what they tell us actually helps us, because we want to do it for ourselves. Right. Yeah. So
you also have to be careful who you're taking it from at the same time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer. But I'm talking if you had like a one-on-one with the person you trust the most.
Yeah. Okay.
And you know why we do that? It's because we're so comfortable with those people that we trust the most, that we take out our frustration, our anger, our sadness, and everything else on them when they may not even want it, but they take it.
Yeah.
But then we don't slow ourselves down enough. We don't control alt delete, right? To be able to take that moment, right, and listen to them. Because what they have is just as valuable of us dumping everything on them and venting.
Yeah.
And we could grow a little bit sooner, right? It's going to happen because they care about us. They're going to tell us again and reiterate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes, like, we don't listen, right? And we never do listen. And then they go, you know what? You don't want to listen to me? I'm done. Right?
True. Yeah.
It happens.
You're on your own.
You're on your own.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's life. We're in control over that trajectory. And if that happens, like, we have to take responsibility for it.
True.
Right? We have that responsibility is on us. So that relationship of somebody that's trying to connect with us more so, and not just be a sounding board all the time. They're trying to give you valuable advice to help you grow because they care about you.
You can lead a horse to water, Ryan.
But you can't make them drink. You can teach a man to fish.
Right. Or give a man a fish. Yeah.
Give a man a fish.
So many metaphors. I'm going to try your game.
Oh, I'm telling you, you're going to have fun with it.
Okay.
I've told a couple people this, and like, they've come back and they went, we played this full-blown game with my family, and it was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
So awesome. it's a freaking good time, especially if you get like-minded people in the same room.
Mhm.
And people just start spouting off metaphors.
Yeah.
And then the the creativeness starts going. And then like here's the other thing too is, so if you write a bunch of them down,
Mhm.
right, and you hand them out, right, and everybody has like their own few metaphors,
Yeah.
like say everybody gets 3, they have to pick like what piggybacks off the metaphor before them.
Okay.
And then
Alright.
you try to create a sentence out of it and see if you can make it like one that makes the most sense, and then you write that down.
Okay. So the one that makes the most sense, whoever got that last sentence gets the point.
Yeah, you can split into like 2 teams.
Okay.
And then and then figure it out. But it is fun doing like kind of round robin. Everybody gets 3 metaphors, and then it's kind of like completing the sentence type of thing.
Right.
Where like I ran, and then you say like down the road, and then somebody says something else, and you're continuing that story, right? But you're doing it with metaphors.
Okay.
And it makes it so funny because it's not going to make sense sometimes.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
You gotta make this, dude. You have to make a game and sell it.
Yeah. But you got to establish the ground rules so everybody understands the assignment, right?
Mhm.
And then everybody will start having some fun with it. So,
Nope, I'll try it.
yeah. Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on. I would love to have you on anytime. So, please hit me up. And we'll do some more episodes and everything. And if you think of something that you feel you can bring perspective and knowledge to somebody else's life, please shoot me a message and we'll jump on and do another episode.
Sounds good. I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
Everybody, this is another episode of Everlasting Veteran Podcast. Please go to YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all the socials, like, follow, comment down below. And we will be putting some photos and video montage together of Ashley's journey through trucking. And thank you. Thank you so much, and have a great day.